Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to round number 6 of the Grid Championship, brought to you by Mettlestate and RaceFace. Season 2, can you believe it? And we're already at round 6. Joining me in the commentary box is none other than the world's slowest alien, Janneman Price. Janneman, how are you feeling tonight? Round number 6, nearing the end, and now we're going around Zolder.
Good evening, Stephen. Nervous because it's Zolder. I mean, tight, twisty tracks, chicanes, left, right, center, narrow track at some sections. So, having said that, the nerves have gone away, and now I got excited, Stephen. We're going to go racing tonight at Zolder. We've done the sprint race last night. Some epic racing. We saw some track limits being exceeded, but tonight is the main event, and let's see what happens.
Well, let's actually take a look at our results from the last race. So it's going to be one exciting race, but Janneman, Zolder being a very tricky circuit is going to test our drivers whether they can keep it on the track or not. And let's take a look at the track preview. Why don't you let us know of how to take Zolder?
You think I know how to take Zolder? Right, let's go for a lap with Christopher Adloff around Zolder. This first turn, left-hander, get the nose tuck in. Don't run too wide onto the gravel on the outside. Swing the car around, go wide into the second turn. Understeer is not your friend around this track. Hope that front end bites. Now it's flat out all the way around this corner. Little dab on the brakes, down to third gear. Swing it through this right-hander now in what we can call the back straight. Now we are onto the rest of our chicanes, the first of 3. Spot your braking point, get the nose in, take a little bit of the curb on the inside, curb on that side. Hope it does not unsettle the car over this blind crest onto this left-hander. Now we've got the second double chicane. You can take a lot of the track here on the inside. The code's already gone. Get it swung through here. Don't let the back end step out. Flat out through this right-hander, up the hill. Another blind crest coming. And now we are onto the hairpin, braking at roughly about the 100-meter board. Right down to first gear, get the nose in, around the corner, and back on the throttle as soon as possible. Now you only got the final 2 corners to go, and you see the tree in front of you. Just braking in front of the bridge, taking the curbs on both these corners. Hope it doesn't unsettle the rear end, getting back on the power, and you're back on the pit straight.
Well, that's head down to the track where our drivers are heading into qualifying, and so far it's been a pretty interesting run with Mac van der Merwe up in first place. He got out the pits nice and quickly to avoid the rush, and well, I'm curious to see how each of the drivers are going to be able to handle the situation with everything that's going on. Who's going to be able to claw their way to the top? How is it going to be their what's going to be the advantageous part for the entire race? Who's going to be able to claw their way through? lots of pressure going on the likes of Philip Minnaar, who's slowly losing grip of that championship at the moment, and Regoli Racing losing track of that team championship, now needing to really get back on the horse and get charging forward. And well, I think this is where it's going to make it or break it, because all the points are to play for.
Yeah, and Zolder is kind of a difficult track. We spoke about it last night. It's not a very long lap. I mean, these guys are lapping at sub 1 minute 30s. So that pit stop strategy is going to be very interesting, Stephen. If you're going to pit early, it is going to essentially put you 1 lap behind, and you are running the risk of just being put back into the pack, but 1 lap behind, essentially.
This is where we've got to start thinking about the strategy-wise of what's going to happen, because they do have a mandatory pit stops to complete. If you miss out your pit stop, you land up with a severe penalty at the end. So there is no getting it wrong. You have to get it completely right. You're also coming out into turn 1 as you exit the pit, so that's going to also change things up. Ryan Otten so far putting in the fastest lap time, 1:27.8, which has been one of the quicker lap times that we've seen all week. Philip Minnaar joining in with a 1:27.9 as his quickest lap time. Mac van der Merwe 1:28.1, followed by Jason McGregor doing a 1:28.2 in the hybrid Marlboro, followed by Bego Grobler in 5th place at the moment. Nicholas Manuel in 6th. 7th is Sanjin Pillay, followed by Peter Meyer, Essie Esterhuis, and also Loic Randabel, rounding out our current top 10. And as I say that, it all gets turned round as Christian de Bloy goes and puts himself in 1st place with a 1:26.8, which is the quickest lap time he has done as a personal best. Not only the quickest lap time we've seen, so really focusing on it, but instantly gets beaten out by Mr. Cody Sherritt, who's part of the Genesis Esports. Now, I know we've been reporting in he's part of G2, do apologize for that, but he's actually with Genesis Esports, so congratulations on the announcement. He's also teaming up with Luke Addison as well, who's part of the Genesis Esports team.
So, we're already into the 126s, Stephen, quite early into qualifying. I mean, not even 6 minutes done, and Cody Sherritt already putting in that 1:26.8. Already considerably faster than the pole position time for last night, but taking into account this is business time. These guys have been putting in the laps. I've actually been on the track this afternoon with Cody Sherritt and Bego Grobler. Yeah, needless to say, I was a bit off the pace, and they were lapping quite considerably faster than what I was doing. And you know, it's just amazing for me to see the kind of lap times and car control these guys have. It's something that I think I sadly lost a little bit when I moved away from ACC for a while, and I'm finding it very, very difficult to get it back.
Well, I think it all comes down to commitment. A lot of these guys have been doing thousands and thousands of laps around the circuit, but it also comes down to how committed you are through the corners, because it's either you're completely on the brakes or you're not. I mean, just take a look at Brandon Kruger as he makes his way through in the Aston Martin, bouncing off the curbs. You can hear that he's constantly on the throttle. You can also see the rev range. He's bringing it right into the max revs, pulling the car through, letting the engine do all the work, gearing down, letting the engine slow himself down, not just the brakes. So lightly on the brakes, but use the engine's brute force torque as he goes down the gears to just try and slow itself down. And this is what separates the pro drivers, or the aliens as we like to call them. The difference between them and the common man is the pure commitment that they're willing to put into it. I mean, we see it in numerous different genres of sports. I was taking a look at some of the competitions that have been going on at Mettlestate, where you see some of the FIFA players, you see some of the League of Legends, everyone who's just committed to getting a thing right, and they just put thousands and thousands of hours, and they believe what they're going to do is going to make the difference. And it boggles the mind of getting into that mindset, which these drivers manage to get in at like a second nature.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to replicate some of the stuff they were doing on track this afternoon, and needless to say, it just went horribly wrong for me. Just couldn't do it. As you see Bego Grobler sliding that Audi, through the corners. They just, in this qualifying session, running on the absolute limit.
I also want to, just jumping in here, I want to put out a big shout out. And it's an 80k sim racer that, one, went and represented South Africa in the FIA games. Okay, raced representing South Africa in the official FIA, and that's Koketso Polani, who's lying in 9th place. He's coming from the world of console racing, and this is his debut race that we've seen Koketso come into, well, RaceFace and also to the Mettlestate Grid Championship. So a big welcome to the 80k sim racer, Koketso Polani. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely awesome to see, and I think it will be brilliant to see what he can do in his basically maiden race on ACC PC RaceFace, so to say. Some always good, Stephen, to see some new blood coming through and taking the fight to the rest of the field.
It's going to be an interesting one, and considering he's got the charge to try and beat that 126.8 set by Cody Sherritt, who's duking out with the championship with Philip Minnaar right behind, it's going to be it's not going to be an easy run for any of these drivers, no matter where you are. And I'm very, very curious to see how the guys are going to be able to claw their way through. But we've got 3 80k sim races now on the grid, which doesn't quite rival our KSR, but it doesn't rival our hybrid, but is getting into one of our bigger teams that we've seen racing with us. So it's good to see more and more guys getting into the pros and really putting in the extra bit of work, as we're up to 28 in the field for tonight to make it happen or break it. There's 2 ways it's going to end off. So I'm really, really interested to see how this all turns out as the race gets into it. But so far at the moment, Cody Sherritt in first place, Philip Minnaar, Bernard Barkhuizen, Mac van der Merwe, Brandon Kruger, Christopher Radloff, Ryan Ottens, Koketso Polani up into 8th. 9th place is Christian de Bloy, and Bego Grobler in 10th place. A little bit further down, Ronaldo Bosema in 11th. 12th is Nicholas Manuel, followed by Daniel Rowe. Good to see Daniel Rowe coming back after he had an endurance race. He went through a 4-hour endurance race this weekend in a VW Super Cup. So good to see that he's rejoined. I actually had a chat to him. He's very proud of his team at the moment. He wants to go and show what he can do. But he said, when I'm having a chat to him, he said that a lot of the younger blood that's coming in is taking his moves, learning from it, and learning how to counter it as well. So he's having to pull out some new tricks out of the hat to go and make sure he keeps ahead of his team. Sanjin Pillay in 14th. 15th is Jason McGregor. Peter Meyer in 16th. 17th, Johan Kleinans, Gideon Reyna, Justin Lotus, Grant Sebastian, Morgan McCall in 21st, Tini Kube in 22nd, SES Hayes in 23rd, 24th, Loic Randabal, Charles Schnur, do apologize, in 25th. 26th is Cameron De Bastos, followed by Dean Kabasa, and rounding out the field is Andre Serradio from Project Vapor.
Now, Stephen, just one thing I want to touch on. That's 28 cars. 28 cars around a track like Zolder. That's a lot of cars you got on track.
It's going to be a very difficult race for anyone. Don't think... Doesn't matter where you are, you're going to land up with a car in front of you or behind you, especially when the pit stops come into play. And how are you going to make your way around it? Are you going to get caught out? Or are you going to run in where the guys are going to slow you up? What's going to be the tricky way of getting around it? Yes, this is a 4.01 kilometer circuit. So it's a 4 kilometer circuit, but with 28 cars in a tight space, well, life's about to get a whole lot trickier for all our drivers.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to say is a lot of cars, not a lot of track.
Well, that's it. And, the guys are going to have to try and figure out when is going to be the right time to pit and when's the right time to just keep your foot in it. But to give you an idea, so far in 2021, the lap record for a GT3 was held around the circuit, and that was a 127.2 done by Nico Müller in an Audi R8 LMS Evo. So far, we've got Cody Sherritt, who destroyed the record. We've got Philip Minnaar, who's destroyed the record. And we've got Bernard Barkhuizen, who we're keeping an eye on, who literally set the same time as the world record, a 127.2.
Well, that's basically showing you the class of the field that we've got out here tonight and the lap times they are putting in. But as we draw qualifying to a close, almost less than 2 minutes to go, Steven, it's a long race, 1 hour, 20 minutes, anything can happen. Strategy is going to play a huge part. And I know I've said it a couple of times before, but I want to say it again. How many guys do you think are going to go for that early pit stop, considering this lap is not that long?
I'm going to chuck it in a very different way. For the front, keep pushing as long as you can. For the middle, if you're getting stuck in a train, get into the pits early, get your first pit stop out the way. Get out of the train. Because the moment that you start trying to run the same rhythm as another driver, you start losing your rhythm. And you start copying their rhythm. And the problem comes in, your setup and their setup might be vastly different. Your wear on tires may be vastly different. Your wear on fuel, how much fuel usage you're going to have, is going to be vastly different. So you've got to be so careful what you're doing. So if you're in the mid-pack, early pit stop, get out of a long train, rather focus with 2 cars or 3 cars. Don't get into a situation where you've got 4 or 5 cars. If you're at the front or the back, I think the later pit stop might be a better option for our drivers to try and figure out what's going to be the best way to do it. At the front, you want to get away from everyone, and if you're at the rear, try and push yourself further into the field. Run that extra little bit of length. So I predict roughly around the 55-minute mark, we should see the first pit stops come into play, just for a splash and dash. Run your tires the rest of the way through.
And do you think there are going to be any guys that are going to go the full distance without changing tires, or not on a track like Zolder?
Having a chat to a couple of the drivers, I do think they're going to run the distance on one set of tires. It has been proven, it has been shown that it can work, but it's all about how you're going to get it to claw the way through. And that's where I think is going to be very, very interesting, is who's going to be able to take that risk and focus on clawing their way through, who's going to be able to nurse their tires long enough that it doesn't land up in a world of hurt. And you're definitely going to be tinkering with your brake bias and your traction control as you go through, as time moves on. But while our drivers are all now going to be taking their stage, let's head back to the commentary booth. And we await our drivers to get ready before we head down to the circuit. And we'll have Jim, who will be announcing that when the green flag goes. Remember, this is a half a lap. It's not a full lap, so they're going to have 3 corners to get themselves all ready to go, warmed up the brakes and warm up the tires before they get out racing for 1 hour, 20 minutes, 2 mandatory pit stops for round number 6 of the Mettlestate Grid Championship.
I mean, 3 corners, not a lot of time to get some heat and so forth into the tires and the brakes. So you need to be very gingerly those first couple of corners and so forth until you get some sort of temperature, some sort of pressure into those tires and some sort of temperature into those brakes. So, Stephen, turn 1 to... We've seen a lot of clean racing last night through there. But then we get to that chicane on the first lap, and all these 28 cars will be bunched up. All 28 will have to go through a very narrow piece of track, and things are going to get lively, things are going to get interesting.
It's going to be a tricky situation for all the drivers, I think, and as we see, Cody Sherritt is going to be starting in first place. He's got his championship rival, Philip Minnaar, sitting on his outside, so it's all about how quickly can you move across the nose of your competitor to ensure that you don't land up with a problem. don't count out Brandon Kruger and Bernard Barkhuizen as well. So looking to get into the fight. And also you got Christian Deploy out in 5th with Mac van der Merwe, Ryan Ottens, Christopher Radloff, Koketso Polani, the wild card that is in this race in 9th place. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he will be able to do because, well, there's a lot of hype. And for someone that's gone and represented South Africa, he's really going to show off what he can do. I'm really excited for the talent we have here for the Grid Championship Season 2. It's amazing, and especially for round number 6. I'm glad to see more and more people coming into the fray. That's going to leave a lot of people wondering what's going to happen at the end. Who's going to be able to get the flags, and who's going to be able to carry the points all the way to the end? There's so many questions, there's so many unknowns. And after an hour and 20 minutes, we're about to find out.
Yeah, not long to go now.
As they make their way through what you call Jackie Xbox. But
Just can't pronounce it.
Being geared up, and Cody Sherritt lining himself just shy ahead of Philip Minnar. 70 kilometers an hour to go, and we wait for the green lights. And away they go, heading into turn 1, and Philip Minnar tried stopping the likes of Cody Sherritt from going to the middle of the circuit as they claw their way through. All looking good so far. And a couple of drive-throughs. Christopher Radloff with a drive-through, Morgan McCall with a drive-through, and Kuber with a drive-through, all going and just jumping the grid. And that's going to add an unnecessary change to your race strategy. Not going to be the one that you want to deal with. Mac van der Merwe trying to deal with Christian Deploy. Brandon Kruger managing to jump up ahead. But off to a bit of an upset for everyone. Christopher Radloff also giving huge chase as they make their way through. That does look like one of the KSR drivers going and landing out in the dirt. That might have been Brandon Kruger who went venturing off into the dirt, as he's got Christopher Radloff looking up on his inside. The two of them giving a big shove. Ryan Otten's looking to get involved as well as they make their way around. And all just elbow to elbow racing between every single one of them. Daniel Rowe looking to try and get involved in the battle as well, as Brandon Kruger's fighting off the Hybrid Academy onslaught while he's watching Mac van der Merwe and Christian Deploy do everything he can. And a little bit further down, Koketso Polani, he's got Bego Frobler all over the back of him. Jason McGregor's got Sanjin Pillay trying to get into the toe. And it does look like Christopher Radloff into the pits, trying to get it sorted, done and dusted, get that drive-through out the way so he can continue on the rest of his race. Let's see if everyone else is going to follow suit. Doesn't look like Vancouver is doing it. Morgan McCall, all three are actually going and doing it. So, off to a bit of a chaotic start, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, Morgan looks like he was struggling a little bit in qualified position. I mean, he started in 22nd. He really did not need this drive-through penalty. I mean, that's going to drop all three of them right down to the back of the field and essentially put them half a lap behind the rest of the pack, and they will have to make their way up from there again. But Koketso Polani making a relatively good start, keeping his position in 9th position. That
was Ryan Ottens who took a little bit too much curb and decided to go venturing in the air. Daniel Rose saying, thank you very much, I'll take the position then, and you can deal with Koketso Polani.
Yeah, but didn't Ryan Ottens learn from his mistake last night, because he had a similar incident through that little chicane with the Porsche stepping out right from underneath him. But it just shows you these guys are not hanging back. I mean, as we have a look at McGregor and them slugging it out, they going side by side. Sanjin Pillay following through, running a little bit wide there.
Sanjin actually coming back on the track after trying to outbrake Peter Meyer, and Kleinot's having to just go and change the colour of his shorts, taking avoidance of the action. So,
Stephen, I just want to ask you, son.
Yes.
Is it Wednesday or Thursday tonight?
It's definitely a Thursday, and these drivers are really showing off what they can do, especially this early on in the race. But once again, how much life are you taking out of the tyres early on? The guys are really
the question, yes.
Yeah, drivers are trying everything they can. Bernard Barkhuizen right up onto the back of Philip Minnar. these two teams are battling it out. Also, the two drivers are battling out for their team championship. Christian Deploy, who's just lurking, waiting for the guys to make a move. This is where it starts getting a little bit more worrisome. Daniel Rowe's got Ryan Ottens, and when I actually spoke to Daniel Rowe, I said, listen, battling out your teammates, is there any talk about what you're going to do, how you're going to work with them? He says, no, there's one simple rule that's been kept amongst it, and that is just floor it. If you get past me, congratulations, but I'm not going to make it easy for you. Pit windows open, as we heard Jim telling us, but this is going to be a very interesting race, not only as teammates, but as drivers, because every point counts. Every point is valuable, as after this we've got 2 rounds left of this championship, and whoever's going to hold the glory, well, has to make it happen.
I mean, absolutely, at this stage Bernard Parker is all over the back of Minnow, as we have a look at Ryan Ottens there quickly. But these two, I mean, Stephen, they're not holding back. These two Aston Martins, and both of them front engine cars. We've got Cody Sherritt in the mid-engine out in front, but I just want to move back to that quickly. Last night, it seems like different cars went through different phases. We had the front engine cars that looked like they got stronger later on in the race. Yes, they did pick up understeer, but overall they did seem a little bit more stable than what the mid-engine cars were 40 or so minutes into the race. How do you think that's going to influence the strategy these guys are going for? Is it a case of, the mid-engine cars getting stronger through certain parts, where the front engine cars might be stronger through other parts of the race?
I think as the race gets dragged on longer and longer, we're going to end up seeing guys. I'd say the mid-engines are going to have a little bit more of an advantage because of the rotation, but it depends on how much you're willing to fight and take as drivers making their way through. It does look like Mac van der Merwe losing our position to Brandon Kruger, but you've got to pick your fights. Really got to pick your fights.
That pass from Kruger and van der Merwe, it kind of, you kind of saw two different race strategies just right there, because there was not a lot of fighting involved for that position. It was a case of, okay, carry on your merry way. This is a long race. It's an hour and 20 minutes. We're not even 7 minutes into it. I mean, that just shows you that some guys might be thinking longer game.
Well, you've got to think a longer game, but if you're in the case of Daniel Rowe, Bego Krobler, and Jason McGregor, you've got to put your head into what's happening now at this point, because you got Jason McGregor, who's not on the team of Hybrid Academy, is in the tow and trying to pull himself along. He's going to try and look to make some moves and pull his way out. So, just talking about him, commentators cursed. Okay, sorry. Yikes. That's all I can say. Yikes. I'm sorry. It's unfortunate to go and see the likes of McGregor getting turned around, but just taking too much curb. And unfortunately, that Honda completely disagreeing with him, telling him that his constitution is completely wrong and he's going to do a 180 on that whole choice.
But that chicane, for me, it's kind of a hit and miss. You do it 100 times in a row at exactly the same type of manner, and 101 bites you for some odd reason.
Well, it's easy. You get too confident. It's like going and putting... The only way I can put it is Zolder's one of these circuits that you can put your hand in a lion's mouth. We've all seen the photos. We've all seen where the guys are putting their heads in a lion's mouth and waiting for something to, check what I can do. It just takes that one time where the lion decides to sneeze.
So Bernard Barkhuizen making his way around Philip Minnaar into second position, but following very closely behind now is Christian Deploy. He's closed that gap right up, and that has put Philip Minnaar right in the middle of that battle. Not always a nice place to be, because you need to try and attack the car in front of you, but also defend from the car behind, and it certainly does look through this section that Mercedes from Christian Deploy certainly is planted at this stage, but looks like he lost a little bit of drive coming out of chicane, and that allowed Philip Minnaar to open up that gap just a little bit, but it does look like Christian De Prooi managed to close it up a little bit under braking. So even at this stage, it does look like there's certainly different setups involved here. It does look like Christian's Mercedes is stronger in certain sections where the Aston Martin or Philip Minor might be stronger in other sections.
Well, it's a bit of cat and mouse at this point, but I just want to talk about, Cody Sherritt has already caught up to the first of our back markers. He's up to Cameron de Bastos ahead of him, and Cameron, who's just doing everything he can to keep on going. Cody Sherritt Morgan's got a drive through, and he's still in the pits. I think Morgan may have a problem because he hasn't exited out of the pits. He's been in there for quite some time. But Cody Sherritt, who's now trying to run away from the rest of the field and show off what he can do, was pulling a Max Verstappen where he was driving into round number 7 already, has now got to deal with Bernard Barkhuizen starting to close down, Philip Minard, Christian De Prooi, Brandon Kruger, Mac van der Merwe, Ryan Ottens, Daniel Rowe, having his teammate Bego Krobler still duking it out. And I want to go back to Watkins Glen, Indianapolis. These two, same track, same piece of surface, and as Daniel Rowe said, he's not going to give up a position too easy. He's going to let the guys have it to fight their way out. Bego and Daniel have shared enough paint on their cars. Now I'm sure both BMW and Audi are sick and tired of replacing the panels at this point between the two sister cars duking it out.
It's this way. They've got the same paint scheme, so swapping paint essentially keeps it at the same paint scheme, doesn't it?
You're putting blue onto black. You're starting to adjust the color palette.
Maybe they're starting to get creative and do a new color scheme as they're driving to see what they end up with at the end of the race.
Oh, it's definitely going to make things challenging. Christian De Prooi losing out time to Philip Minor. We're starting to close the gap, but now Brandon Kruger's getting, and it does look like in the case of Cameron de Bastos, he's been really trying to keep things going. Unfortunately, just sitting in the wrong place because you're forever caught in a train, and just taking a look.
They're flirting with that chicane.
Philip Minard decided he's going to go launching himself. Let's actually go back a couple of seconds at Philip Minard. Look in the helmet. We talked about you can wait for the chicane to bite you. It's got itself poised and ready. And you're coming up. You're giving it everything you got. You're going to sling it into the left-hander, down into second gear. First bounce, second bounce, and GT3s are not meant to be sitting that way off the ground. And
that was a takeoff.
That was and now sitting in the wrong direction. What on earth has happened to the likes of Philip Minard? What happened to him? As we get Tim the cameraman to just take a look. Philip Minard, who was way up in the field, looks like his Aston just rotated around under the throttle. Came back in. Luckily,
it's actually kind of a weird one.
Low traction control on the power, like the rears up, and not one of the most exciting things you can do is be facing direction.
Yeah, it's a bit uncharacteristic as we see him now in the pits. He's decided to do a pit stop, but a little bit uncharacteristic of an Aston Martin to snap around that very quickly. I mean, but you mentioned traction control. Might be that he was running a very low traction control there, and the rears just said no, they're not coping with that amount of power being put through them that early.
Taking a look at Lonnie over Bego Krobler. They've got Cameron just ahead of him. Cameron is actually holding up the train a little bit, and you can see Daniel Rowe looking left and right, trying to tell Cameron, you need to go. We've got a Mercedes on the back of us. The 80k driver now going to be smiling and grinning ear for ear as Daniel Rowe up on the inside. Bego tries to go up on the inside.
Milani out-braking himself a little bit.
Just climbing onto the anchors a little bit too late, and see if he's going to have an easy way to get past. Cameron trying to keep with the toe, though, is now holding Kalani at bay, and now having to try and figure out how he can get around the Ferrari. Gets on the power, but just not having as much run that is needed. And Cameron's not backing down at all. He's going to try and let him go through turn 1, but some tough racing there. A little bit further back, Gideon Rayner and Jason McGregor, 13th and 14th place, are slugging out between one another. Jason McGregor, who early on had a difficult time with that Honda turning around him, now in a monstrous battle with the McLaren. Lots of people say McLaren actually a very, very difficult car to have around the circuit, and well, makes it a little bit too lively in some aspects. So guys are having to try and figure out what's going to be the right way to do it. And a couple of drivers in the chat also agreeing that Aston snapping around very, very uncharacteristic. Like Bernard Barkhuizen though.
Right.
Oh, there we go. Bernard Barkhuizen right onto the back of Cody Sherritt. Now we're talking about Aston's fighting out with mid-engines. Well, let's put Cody Sherritt, who did a best lap time of 127.775. Bernard Barkhuizen getting a 127.517, getting into the toe and looking to get into this fight.
Now, is it a case of the front engine cars are now starting to go through that phase where they just have the upper hand on the mid-engine cars? I mean, Cody was kind of out in front, not comfortably, but, you know, Bernard Barkhuizen caught up to him very quickly, and he's now taking the fight to him. He's got stuck to the rear bumper of that Honda, and he's definitely looking for a way past. He doesn't want to hang around. He wants to get past Cody Sherritt, carry on his merry way, but knowing Cody Sherritt, he's not going to hang back. He's going to put the fight to Barkhuizen. So I think this is going to get very interesting. Just through that corner, the Aston Martin looked a lot more planted than the Honda, and he's actually going to have a look on the outside. They are millimeters apart as they go through this chicane. Cody jumping it over the corners. Does look like he got the drive he needed to stay in front of Barkhuizen. Oh, Stephen, this is close. These two are not hanging around.
And a little bit behind, Christian Deploy has got Brandon Kruger giving him a shove, and it does look like they've got through to Andre Serradio, who's now changing things up for all the drivers. So Cody Sherritt might have got caught up behind the Project Vapor driver, and that's where he lost out the time and allowed Bernard Barkhuizen to get a little bit closer. Christian Proy with Brandon Kruger on his tail as well, as turning into a bit of a fight. So all these drivers are just trying to look at getting one up on one another. Now the question comes in of when are you going to get your first pit stop out the way and get back into the race to keep on going. There's lots of questions being asked, and you can be sure the teams are sitting frantically, pen to paper, and all the data that they can think of to try and figure out what's going to be the way to pull their way to the top of the field. What's going to be the right strategy? You came in with strategy A, you're now on strategy Z before 20 minutes is up.
And you need to make that decision, because as these two are slugging it out, Sherritt and Barkhuizen, essentially when you're involved in a battle like this, you are holding each other up, and you are relying on the battles behind you, like the likes of Christian Deploy and Brandon Kruger, to have the same kind of battle as you are. Otherwise they're going to close right up onto you, and it might affect your race negatively. So a lot of different things you need to take into consideration here, Stephen. That's way above my pay grade and brain capacity to do that while I'm on the fly.
I'll run out of airtime if I have to try and figure it out. Ryan Ottens and Mac van der Merwe also in a very close battle with one another. So first and second in a very close battle. Third and fourth in a close battle. And fifth and sixth are in a close battle. Just duking it out within the top 10. These guys are 0.1 to 0.2 of a difference between one another in through majority of the sections of the circuit. At the moment, Cody Sherritt, who is going to have to select when is he going to get into the pits, is trying to figure out what's going to be the ideal time. As to see Jason McGregor is actually in the pits and staying there for a long time, so it looks like he's retired his vehicle. He's decided that enough is enough. And yeah, lots of trying to think things out as our drivers make their way through and start working through these more of a difficult situation of getting into this 20 minutes done. Then you've got to start considering round about the 50-minute mark, 55-minute mark. I foresee that's going to be the best time to do your pit stop. But we already saw how the back of the field started influencing the front. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one to call in the case of like Daniel Rowe, who's chasing after Mac van der Merwe. And
that's what I want to come to now. Yeah, I mean, these three are also battling it out, 7th, 8th, and 9th position.
Daniel Rowe, Bego Krobler, and Keketso Polani getting involved into it, and they've got the likes of Andre Serradio, who's ahead of them, who's a back marker in this situation. He's a lap down, he's getting blue flagged and getting told, listen, you've got to either Evo out the way, or you've got to just give us a bit of a gap here, because we got a tough time. Bego Krobler trying to use his teammate as a wrecking ball to just get past and try and catch up to Mac van der Merwe, because while they're duking out, Ryan Ottens and Mac van der Merwe are starting to open up their gap. It does look like Daniel Rowe's going up on the inside, makes it stick. Bego follows through. Keketso Polani just not getting by in time. So the two Hybrid Academy drivers just figuring their way around. Keketso Polani caught up behind Andre Serradio, looks to go on the inside. Andre says, listen, you guys go. That's how you keep on your merry way. Enjoy the race as it goes. But let's head back up to our first and second, Cody Sheraton, Bernard Barkhazen, who are still in a monstrous fight. Christian Deploy and likes of Brandon Kruger, we could see in shot, who are trying to also fight their way around the circuit. This is a race about who can last, who can keep their tires going, what fuel levels you set at, what's your strategy. If you're running a lighter tank, are you trying to stretch out the life of your tires? Because just a normal drive through in the pits is going to set you back close to 40 seconds. Oh, well, sorry, guys putting in fuel is 34 seconds in the pits. So 34 to 35 seconds is roughly the time that you need to split yourself away from your competition if you want to not suffer any problems with your pit stop. How that's all going to turn out, well, we're about to find out.
Now, the other question is, having basically the top 9 all involved in battles, it's very easy, Stephen, to get caught up in a battle like we're seeing currently on screen here. I mean, and then starting to lose focus on what your strategy actually is. I mean, it has happened to both myself and you, and and all of a sudden you find yourself starting to run out of fuel, missing pit stops and those kind of things. It is possible. So I think that's why a lot of these guys have got somebody in their ear just reminding them of what they need to do to keep the momentum and keep to the kind of the strategy Z that you referred to. I think they might now be on Z10 already.
Well, if we lead it back to the usual good old saying, and any person who has got a car goes, I know my car best. I know my car. That light comes on, I know my car. But you realize that you use that half a buddy bottle, a little bit too much fuel, and it really goes and throws a monkey in the wrench of your plans. And you've got to try and figure out what's going to be the right idea to try and claw your way through. So, very difficult situation. A lot of these guys have pre-planned their pit stops ahead of time. They've set them up, so they've got a set amount of fuel to go in, whether they're changing tires or not. They've got a pit stop 1 and a pit stop 2, so they don't have to worry about pushing any buttons when they come into the pits. But you've gone and made those setup choices, those pit stop, on very specific parameters. And that can all change when you're in a race like Daniel Rowe, Bego Krobler, Keketso Polani, where you got a three-way battle and you start pushing each other out of each other in your comfort zones, and you land up with using a little bit more fuel and using a little bit more tires. And as you go running over the rumble strips, as we found out, guys are reporting in that every lap they can lose up to 5% tire life just going and running into the curbs and locking up well on the curves. So you're taking out that huge amount of tire life and that can land up with a world of hurt later on into your race.
Just having a look out in front, seems like Bernard Barkhuizen did get past Cody Sherritt. So first place now Barkhuizen, second place Cody Sherritt. So there's a change of position, and it does look like Barkhuizen is starting to open up a little bit of a gap over Sherritt. I mean, gap at this stage 1.5 seconds. Lurking at third place is Christian Deploy, 1.7 seconds behind Cody Sherritt. So a little bit of a change in position, but Christian Deploy's got Brandon Kruger for company, only 0.2 of a second behind. So he's not having an easy time at this stage.
Not at all. And just looking at Brandon Kruger's car on the side, I know that the KSR team have been adding all sorts of anime characters to the side of their car. And anyone, if you can correct me, this does look like a character from Sword Art Online, which is a nice little touch going, considering of the type of fight that they're in is life and death at this point to get those points. And Sword Art Online being a character that's in a game, now racing in a virtual space where your virtual space has now become reality, where sim racing is becoming a reality of getting bigger, better, and stronger every time we go out for the Grid Championship. I gotta say it's a nice little touch.
Yeah, just something different. Actually reminds me of myself and you, who tend to put different stuff on the car just for a little bit of fun out there.
I'll just take a look. Let's see if we can see anything on Cody's car. Not seeing any damage in terms of surface. May have got it a bit sideways though and lost out that time. So
yeah, sorry, well, are you talking about the pass or?
Well, just looking at Cody's car at the moment, I'm not seeing any damage to it, but he is significantly dropping off the pace, and I don't know what's going on, and you know, why is he losing that much time? He's actually getting swallowed in by Christian Deploy and Brandon Kruger. So
I'm gonna say, you know, we saw it last night where the mid-engine cars started to struggling towards the end of the race, and the front-engine cars started getting stronger as the race progressed. Even there's 53, just under 54 minutes left in this race, so we are approaching or getting closer to the halfway mark, and I don't know if we're just seeing the drop-off of the mid-engine cars through this stage of the race.
Well, we just caught Daniel Rowe landing up with an incident, and let's see what happened if the BMW just bit back. See Bago Krobler and Kuketso Polani duking it out. And I wonder if Daniel Rowe just lost it all by himself. The BMW just bit and went. There it is. Just got a snap oversteer on corner exit and landed out into the dirt. So that's just changed his whole story. So it's things to keep an eye out for. Brandon Kruger, though, all over Christian Deploy. Cody Sherritt now is getting chased down 1.5 seconds between himself and Christian Deploy. So the Honda's starting to show that those tires are not being favorable at the moment, and it's starting to take a beating. 28 degrees out on circuit. Do you think that they're naturally getting overheated at this point? Honda is doing what it does best, and that is starting to make mincemeat of these tires.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit too much VTEC kicking in there and roasting the tires. You know, I hope for Cody's sake it's not a problem on the car. I hope for him it's just a phase that the car's going through, and he can do his pit stop and get out, you know, stronger. And carry on as we see Kruger getting right up to the rear bumper of Christian Deploy. You know, Christian not having exactly a Sunday afternoon drive. He's got Kruger for company. Oh, Kruger diving into the pits, and that was one of the issues with Zolder we saw right there on the screen.
Now the question is, did he dive into the pits voluntarily, or did suddenly clamping on the brakes and realizing he's not slowing up in time going to be the difference maker? Well, he's our first hit to the pits. He was first in our top 10 that actually dived into the pits, especially after nearly an hour and 10 minutes are going to be going by. which, well, sorry, 30 minutes will be going by. I wonder, one makes me wonder of what these tires are doing. Cody Sherritt now has to make his way through one of the back markers, while seeing Bernard Barkhuis, who's having no problem at this point, starting to claw his way through. So Cody's got to spend no time getting caught up behind back markers. He gets magic to get past Kleinhunt under braking and launches his way forward. So let's see how his race is going to go. But Christian Deploy with a drive-through penalty. Too many incidents in a row. Too many times you've gone for those curbs over the chicanes and it just bit back in a different way. The marshals weren't sleeping on those posts.
No, what I wanted to say is Brandon Kruger definitely taking on new tires as he was stationary for 33 seconds. So, taking new tires a little bit earlier, I mean, so he needs to make those tires last for 50 minutes. So, I don't know. Does that mean he was struggling with tires while he was sitting behind Christian Deploy? I know sitting very closely behind a car in front of you is going to chow those front tires even more, Stephen, but changing tires early, I mean, it shows you that the guys might be struggling with tire wear on Zolder.
It's a bit tricky. The more aggressive you are, the more the tires are going to take a bit of life out of themselves. And, well, it's just going to be an interesting as we see Gideon Rayner diving into the pit, so he's getting himself sorted out. I don't actually know of what's going to be the most advantageous moves that are going to be working their way around. We've seen the 50-minute mark. Guys are... majority of the grid has not pulled into the pits, so they haven't gone for that late pit stop. They're going for the 40-minute mark, try to do that halfway split, and get that second pit stop a lot later in for a splash and dash. But if you take a look at what causes a drive-through penalty, one is if you get your start wrong. If you're over 70 kilometers now, drive-through penalty. We saw 3 of those come up. Going and taking too much curb is one, putting strain on the car. You sliding your car out, you're getting wear on the tires, and also you're getting incident. So it's kind of a triple whammy if you get it wrong. And all you got to be asking yourself at this point is, do I need to be aggressive? Do I have to be aggressive right now, or can I dial it back and start focusing on just keeping the momentum and keeping my rhythm, and let everyone else try and push their way through?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. There's Zolder being such a short track means there's a lot less gaps involved, so it's a lot more difficult to find that clear gap run in where you can just focus on your pace, focus on your rhythm. I mean, for instance, like a track on Spa, 28 cars on Spa, I mean, it's a breeze. The track is so long, but Zolder is basically half the length of Spa, so gaps get halved. There's a lot of cars on track. You got cars left, right, and center. So with cars all around you, it is going to happen that you have more tire wear and sometimes even more fuel usage, as we see Boersma also picking up a drive-through penalty. So very much like the sprint race last night, we're starting to see those drive-through penalties creeping up, and we're basically not even halfway through the race. 7 minutes to go before we hit that halfway mark. So it's difficult if you start picking up a lot of these type of incidents before the halfway point. It will you will have to relook at your strategy.
Now,
having a look at the current order, first place we do have Bernard Barkhuis, and followed in second place by Cody Sherritt. Then 5.8 seconds behind, we've got Ryan Ottens currently in third place in that Porsche of his. Then Mac van der Merwe in fourth place. Vego Grobler, he's in a battle currently with Koketso Pilani. He's in fifth place with Koketso Pilani in sixth place. Daniel Rowe now 4 seconds down the road in 7th place. Peter Marr in 8th place, 2.8 seconds behind. Then 13 seconds behind in 9th place, we've got Justin Lotus. And Christian Deploy dropping all the way back to 10th place He is currently 1 second behind Justin Lotus, so he is trying to close that gap and make his way back into 9th position and his way back up to the field, as he was running quite comfortably in the top 3 earlier on. So currently we're following this little battle we got going on between Bego Grobler and Koketso Pilani. Koketso Pilani not holding back in his first race. He's got a point to prove. He wants to make his way up the field, so he's definitely got to put some pressure on Bego Grobler, but we all know Bego very well. Bego's not going to hang back. He's going to take the fight to Koketso Pilani, and he's not going to make life any easier for him, as we see that Audi getting a little bit squirmy out of the last corner, trying to get that power down, and Koketso Pilani not able to capitalize on the slipstream on the pit straight. But it does seem like sometimes this through here that BMW's got the legs on that Audi, closing that gap right up. And as they go flat out through the section, let's have a look at this right-hander, if he will be able to close the gap through that right-hander. And as we move away to this 7th and 8th place battle of Justin Lotus and Christian Deploy. Christian Deploy now in 9th place, 0.3 of a second behind Justin Lotus, so he is trying to make his way past, almost running wide there onto the dirt. That will kill your drive. Looking back at Christian Deploy, looking on the inside for the chicane, deciding to stay behind him over the curbs and losing a little bit of drive through there as Justin Lotus just opening up that gap a little bit.
I do apologize for the bit of the background.
Looking to that section, Christian Deploy taking a lot more curb down there, through there, trying to get a better drive on Justin Lotus, but Justin keeping out in front, running a little bit wide. Let's see if that influences his drive up to the hairpin as Christian Deploy tries to close down on him, but at this stage cannot make the move. So, Stephen,
yes. Apologize for the little bit of background noise that's been going on, but it's so far looking like a difficult race for a lot of the drivers trying to get to grips with the cars. Tire wear is starting to become more and more of a factor. As we take a look at Andre Serradio as a good point, you can see how much angle he's starting to use while trying to get the car in. And that's happening to a lot of our front engines. It's happening to a lot of our rears. Cody Sherritt is back up into 1st place. Ryan Otten's in 2nd. 3rd place is Mac van der Merwe. Bego Grobler, Koketso Pilani, Daniel Rowe, Peter Meyer, Christian Deploy in 8th place. 9th is Justin Lotus. 10th is Christopher Radloff, followed by Grant Sebastian, Loic Randebel going and making his way through. So lots of guys just hoping to try and get round. Kleinan's getting really shown a difficult time and actually taps Ryan Ottens. Kleinans taps Ryan Ottens, and I don't think he was trying to brake late, but let's actually take a look, see if we can go on board. Misses the corner, tries to get it back. Ryan Ottens, who is getting chased down, now having to make his way through, just really doing everything he can to try and keep it in check, allows to get past, braking on the dirt, slowing it down, and there's the tap. Unfortunately, once you're on the dirt, there is no recovering in. Ryan Ottens getting a bit of a knock. He was able to get going once again, but Koketso Pilani immediately taking the advantage and closing down that gap and going after the Hybrid Academy driver. But Ryan Ottens can't be too happy with that one. But unfortunately, there's not much he could do as he goes off. So now Koketso Pilani lining up side by side with Ryan Ottens as they make their way through. Ryan Ottens having to relinquish the position and come back at Koketso Pilani.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately getting a nudge and going from one battle right into the next. And, at that stage, I don't think Ryan Ottens was the happiest of campers. So, I think it might have been a case, Stephen, and Ryan, you can message me if I'm wrong, but I think it might have been a case of Ryan saying, let me just regroup myself and get back into the group before I start taking the fight again to the likes of Pilani.
Well, I want to take a look as we are missing a driver, and that is Barkhazen, who was cruising all the way at the top, suddenly disappearing. He had a disconnect, and now it's gone and affected his race. So he's out of the running. As we see also Philip Minnar getting a drive-through penalty. So Philip Minnar is going from bad to worse, from starting in second place, landing all the way further down in the field into 20th, now also getting a drive-through penalty on top of completing all these pit stops. So if you want to talk about some nightmare racing that's going on, look no further than Barkhazen and Minnar, who's having a very difficult time.
I mean, you said it. We're down to 21 drivers. We started with 28. So we're basically missing a fair chunk of change at this stage. And it's sadly affecting a couple of drivers' race, like the likes of Barkhazen that was fighting out right in the front. But that has released Cody Sherritt. I mean, he's now 7.6 seconds ahead of Mac van der Merwe. So it's not the way you want to do it, but at this stage it's working out quite well for Cody Sherritt.
Makes one wonder, did Barkhazen get the same power unit from Ferrari?
It just said no.
It gave up the ghost and turning
Oh,
into...
at this stage of the race, he just said, my time has come.
That's it. My time has come. I fare thee farewell. But you want to take us through who is sitting where at the moment for our current positioning?
Well, currently out in first place, we've got Cody Sherritt. Second, we've got Mac van der Merwe. He's 7.3 seconds down the road. Third place, Bego Grobler, 2.7 seconds behind. He's in a battle with Koketso Pilani. That's only 0.4 of a second behind him. Daniel Rowe, 6.8 seconds behind in fifth place. Then we've got Peter Maher in sixth. Justin Lotus in 7th. 8th place we've got Grant Sebastian. 9th place we've got Loic Randebal. 10th place Brandon Kruger. 11th Sanjan Pillay. He's been a bit quiet throughout this race. We haven't seen that much of him. I'm sure he wants to make a comeback through the second half of the race. Then Tinian Kube in 12th. Ryan Otten's now sitting in 13th position. Dean Kabasa in 14th. Christian Deploy all the way back in 15th at this stage. Gideon Renner in 16th. Christopher Radloff in a fight with Gideon Renner. He's in 17th. Andre Soradio in 18th. Carl Schlur in 19th. Philip Minnar in 20th. And we've got Ronaldo Boersma running off the field in 21st position.
I'm going to have to ask Carl to pronounce his surname because...
No, you're...
It's one of these surnames that if you get it wrong, you sound like you've had one too many drinks. So I want to make sure that we get it right.
Yeah.
There's like Randebal. We needed to ask the question of how do we pronounce your name correctly?
Because we went randomly wrong at the start of the Randebal story.
But interesting enough, first to sixth have not done a single pit stop. Cody Sherritt, Mac van der Merwe, Bego Grobler, Koketso Pilani, Daniel Rowe, and Grant Sebastian have yet to do their pit stop. Brandon Kruger in 7th place has done a pit stop, still making his way around through the field. So, how is this going to work out in the long run of now we're starting to get to the latter part of the race. We're into the 30 minutes, heading into the 30 minutes mark. It's going to be a difficult race for guys to keep pushing. How long the tire's going to last? What's your fuel usage going to be? And if you are trying to move forward, well, it's going to be a rough time moving forward. What's going to be? It's going to be the advantage here.
Well, I think at this stage it's more of a question you need to assess where you are in the race. I mean, we see a lot of the guys still needing to make all of their pit stops. I mean, yes, from 18th place onwards, it does look like all the pit stops are being completed. But Stephen, in the top 10, I would say the majority of them in the top 10 still need to do all of their pit stops. So, you know, coming up with half an hour to go, for me personally, it becomes a very difficult decision to do 2 pit stops in half an hour, as we see Daniel Rowe diving into the pits there.
Yeah, so Bago Krobler has gone into the pits. Koketso Polani's decided to go into the pits. Daniel Rowe's gone into the pits. So, you know, guys are all taking a bit of a gamble here, throwing the dice and doing those later pit stops. Is it going to be a splash and dash? Is it going to be a tire change? We've seen a couple of tire changes. Brandon Kruger has done a tire change. He's done 33 seconds in the box. Ryan Ottens, Peter Meyer's done a tire change. Christian Deploy's done a tire change. Christopher Radloff, Loic Randabel has not taken tires. Gideon Rayner's not taken tires. Justin Lotus has done tires. Andre Serradio has done tires by the looks of it. So a couple of guys opting to keep their tires where they are and just try and get as much life out of them as possible. So that's going to make a bit of a difficult race for everyone to see where they go. But Brandon Kruger, who has done a pit stop, who has now moved himself up, he's in 7th place. He's trying to chase his way through. Sorry, he's up into 4th place. The timing tower's a little bit slow, but Brandon Kruger is in the prime position to just get one stop out the way and then focus on the rest of the race, while everyone else has to still battle way through. Koketso Polani, who thought he can undercut Bago Krobler, actually followed Bago into the pits and now having to just bounce his Mercedes.
Running wide.
That shouldn't be bunny hopping a Mercedes, but I've got to say, the suspension held. So
Yeah, he missed the landing. I'd give him 5 out of 10 for that landing.
getting a bit sideways, and you can see that Mercedes starting to argue with him. But if we go back to the old saying, any landing you can walk away from is always a good landing.
Isn't it any crash you can walk away from is a good crash?
Well, it depends on what you call a crash and what you call a landing.
Maybe that was a crash landing.
I selectively chose to land on my nose instead of on the rear. I selectively decided to fall down the stairs and not go and move forward. It's the same as selectively to turn on the UPS or just let it keep going.
Well, apparently these two, Randabel and Renner, they're not holding back. They're taking the fight to each other. It's coming back to strategy, Steve. It's what I wanted to say. It's a good change to what we've been seeing all along. We've seen a lot of guys pit very early in the past, and I had the suspicion that is something that's going to happen around a track like Zolder, where the guys are going to stick to it, keep out on the track, and maybe keep the pit stops to later, where the cars have spread out a little bit, and you're not running the risk to be into the middle of the pack after you've done that early first pit stop. But at this stage, Gideon Renner behind Loic Randabel. I mean, that Porsche is looking fairly planted. I've been keeping an eye on him from the heli cam. It does look like Porsche's got a little bit better turn in than what the McLaren has, but that McLaren has got better straight line speed. It closes up right onto him just before the chicane, so almost touching the rear bumper as they go through there. And that's a textbook landing from both of them.
Just trying to utilize as much as the curb as possible, but we've seen drive-through penalties being handed out for taking a little bit too much, as we see Gideon Reyna actually taking a lot of curbs, going over the sausage curbs and doing everything he can to battle it out to close in under the likes of Loic Randabel. And I've got to point out, Gideon Reyna actually going with the tried and true McLaren colours and just having a lot of fun with it. So you'll see just really pushing and trying to close down as much of a gap as possible, just doing everything he can, but just can't get his nose tucked in underneath the Porsche. But if we go back up to the front, Cody Scherer at 7.8 seconds ahead of Mac van der Merwe, then 48.9 seconds down the road. Yes, you heard me right, 48 seconds down the road from second place is Grant Sebastian, followed by Brandon Kruger, Daniel Rowe, Bago Krobler, Koketso Polani, Tinian Kube also duking it out with Ryan Ottens. We're seeing Kube having a great bit of fun. Ryan Ottens not having as much fun being behind Nkube, because Nkube, as we know, can decide that the car will either be very nice to you or he's going to make it a brick wall with a "You shall not pass" sign on the back of it, saying that you can quite happily stay behind and carry on looking at the back of a BMW.
I mean, at this stage, he's not hanging back. Ryan Otten's having a little look on the inside there, but deciding not to go for it. But he's going to do it around the outside as the BMW seemed like it was losing a little bit of drive there. Not quite sure what happened there, but Ryan Otten's making his way past, and let's see if Nkube is going to come back at him.
Nah, I think it's pretty much cut and dry, and Nkube is starting to drop back a little bit. I wonder if he just asked a little bit too much out of the tires, had to brake a little bit harder than planned, and then go down the gears. And a lot of drivers actually backing it into second gear instead of into first. A lot of, it's more comfortable to back it into first gear around the final 2 corners. But yeah, it's you got to choose where you're going to be comfortable. And this late into the race, this late into the championship, you've got to put being comfortable one side, and you've got to go, right, I need points. What do I need to do to get those points? But you've got to think about it that you don't risk it and bin it. You need to make a calculated risk of who you're going to fight with, who you're not going to fight with, and what's your car feeling like at this time of the race. A lot of these drivers are demanding the cars to really stick with them and focus on it, as we see Loic Randebel and Gideon Reyna really asking a lot out of the Porsche and the McLaren, trying to get it to rotate. And you can see how the tails are starting to fish around. They're starting to move. They're starting to get a bit squirmish, especially under braking, as they go climbing onto the brakes. Also, not a lot of movement in the front suspension compared to the likes of Cody Sherritt, who's actually in the box now. So Cody Sherritt comes into the pits. Mac van der Merwe keeps on going. Grant Sebastian is also going to maintain his pace. So Cody Sherritt is now in the box. Let's see where he jumps out, because eyes are going to be on Brandon Kruger, who is on a big charge at the moment after seeing the likes of Barkos disappear due to what I'm guessing is a disconnect. Hopefully not a mechanical failure. We don't like seeing mechanical failures, but it does happen. We've seen interesting things this season with a variety of different problems with steering disconnecting, power going out. I think the funniest one had to be last season, where a guy crashed into a wall because a spider ran up his leg.
I remember that, Joe. It was fine when he could still see the spider, but when he stopped seeing the spider and it started running up his leg, that was quite interesting. But Stephen, talking about all of this stuff, at this stage of the race, we've got Daniel Rowe in 5th place. It does seem like Daniel is a bit by his lonesome himself. That's not something you see quite often on a track like Zolder, especially with so many cars on track. Bego Grobler is 8 seconds behind him in 6th place, so they have split up a bit. But these two are very soon becoming 3, with Justin Lotus now joining the party, and he's going to try and stake the fight to the 2 of them. Gideon Reyna at this stage in that Papaya McLaren, not able to make his way around Loic Randebel, so he's going to have Justin Lotus for... Oh, contact! Was that contact or just a spin?
Let's actually take a look. Let's go to our helicam. So Tim in the heli. Yes, we can actually move Tim around. Got to pay Tim a little bit more. Maybe the sandwich and the soda wasn't good enough. He's been doing lots of hard work jumping between on the ground and in the airplane or in the helicopter. But let's take a look. Did the Porsche get a snap oversteer in through one curb? Runs over the rumble strips, yeah. And it just looked like he got it sideways. Yeah. Gideon Reyna arrived on the scene of an accident by the looks
of an accident, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think there was very much that Gideon Reyna could have done about it. But Gideon Reyna has lost it, Stephen. Sorry, I just saw it on the side screen. He's lost it through the chicane.
Let's actually go and take a look, making his way through and getting a drive. So up into 12th place. Going to be smiling all the way over there. dropping a wheel into the dirt. Now, what you want to do now, picking up a little bit of dirt onto the tires, you got to try and scrub it off because it's just going to break your grip. In through the curbs, take it too many, get some jettison. Oh, and well, the wall wasn't too friendly.
No, at least the wall broke his fall, kinda.
It helped bring him back to ground. And now into the pits. Going to be completing his pit stop, but definitely taking a large smack to the car, and that's going to change as some repairs are going to be done on his vehicle. And no, Loic is going to be not really too perturbed about it. He's going to be smiling a bit of, well, I made a mistake, and now you've made a mistake. We can all move forward on with our problems.
We've all made a mistake, so let's carry on racing. And we started to sound like, oh.
That's it. Cody Sherrod up into first place, so he had just enough to go and keep ahead of Mac van der Merwe, who's also done his first pit stop. Brandon Kruger has done his pit stop, so there's one more to go between them. Grant Sebastian, oddly enough, yes, being way up into the top 5, has still yet to make 2 pit stops, and that's going to affect his race, maybe leaving it a little bit too late at the moment, considering the pit window is open for 21 minutes before, well, you're going to get in trouble from a COC because you decide not to hit it into the box. Second to that, I think the car's going to be crying for a little bit more fuel as well.
Yeah, I mean, these cars, I don't know, can go max, what, in the region of 1 hour, 5 minutes, 1 hour, 10 minutes on a full tank of fuel if you brimmed it at the start.
And
so
drive nicely.
And you drive nicely. So eventually you're going to have to pit as we move back to this little battle of, you know, Bego Grobler and Koketsu Pilani. Bego not getting the drive out of the chicane, and Koketsu Pilani is going to go side by side. He's going to try and go around the outside. Now he's going to have the inside line for the chicane, and he makes it stick. But I'm pretty sure Bego's not going to take that lying down. He's going to try and take the fight right back at Pilani. As we see Renner's got a stop and go, 30-second penalty.
That is for speeding in the pit lane, jumping up a gear, and the pit limiter saying, okay, I'll turn off now, and landing up with a problem. So Renner not going to be too happy with that one, and it's going to be hurting his time. So it's going to drop him way, way down the order. And actually just taking a look, we did get a bit of feedback from the likes of Philip Minnar saying felt dizzy in the start and had his TC dial set between 1 and 0. So he had no traction control.
The chicane said hello.
And the chicane decided, our first chicane, which our drivers are going to be heading up to, going and turning him around and affecting his race completely at that point. A little bit further back, though, for 17th and 18th place, something we need to go and show is Andre Serradio and Charles Snow going and having a bit of fun. So trying to go around the outside. Andre Serradio going and getting a little bit elbows out with the Honda driver. And as they make their way through, Charles is going and backing out, deciding he's not going to get too much into this fight at the moment. He's going to keep into the toe, pull himself along, looks to the outside. Andre Serradio says no. And just moving around, weaving and bobbing and weaving. And I think a little bit too much. You've got to be so careful doing that, looking for a way to get around a driver. Can land up with you going and getting the tail to step out underneath you. And, well, we all know how that ends. You can start playing catch up with the car. Unfortunately, once you hit the grass, you become the passenger.
Yeah, it's kind of a case of, you know, then you're slipping and sliding with the wall, you will be colliding.
Yeah, you got to be so careful to it. Now, with 22 minutes left to go, Cody Sherrod in first place. Mac van der Merwe 19.8 seconds behind. At the moment, Cody, when he dived in the pits, was only fuel. He was stopped for 6.3 seconds. So, do you think he's going to try and keep those tyres right through to the end, knowing that the space he's got at the moment? Mac van der Merwe also doing 17 seconds, so he didn't go for tyres. Brandon Kruger, though, is the only one that's gone for tyres and is closing down on Mac van der Merwe. His lap times being a 1:28.3, while the two cars ahead of him, Mac van der Merwe and Cody Sherrod, doing 1:29. So that's starting to show the wear and tear. Maybe taking the tyres a little bit earlier, starting to pay off and starting to pay dividends later into the race.
Here's something else for you, Stephen. Cody Shearer this stage got a 20-second lead. Yeah, it's a kind of a difficult one. If he decides to take tires and Mac van der Merwe does not decide to take tires, that might close the gap right up between the two of them. So I'm wondering if it might not be a case for Cody if he's going to sit back and maybe wait to see what Mac van der Merwe does in his pit stop.
Well, this is where you start trying to figure out and see Peter Meyer battling out with Christian Deploy. Peter trying to go on the inside, and Christian Deploy all over the back of him as they caught up to Charles and the likes of Andre Serradio, who are in their own battle. They're going to get blue flags, but this is where you start getting tunnel vision. Peter Meyer going and diving off into the pit, so he's just getting right out of the way of it and releasing the likes of Christian Deploy to get by. Dean Kabasa and Justin Lotus are going to be slugging it out as well. So I think at this point, you've just got to hang on for dear life. Kruger has got the advantage of newer life on the tires, but he's got a lot of ground to close up before he can make any sort of ding into the, how far Cody is up the road. I mean, if you look at it, Cody is 20 seconds away from Mac van der Merwe. Brandon Kruger is roughly about 21 seconds away. So, Cody has everything to gain here, and this is for his championship. So taking on tires this late into the race may be a very bad choice, as you see Kaketo Polani going after the likes of Grant Sebastian. He's 5.5 seconds behind Grant Sebastian. He's now trying to slice his way through the battle of Dean Kabasa and the likes of Justin Lotus as they make their way through, and Bego Kobler is just chasing him down. So Kaketo Polani is just, unfortunately at this point, is caught between a bit of a rough sandwich where you've got the teammates all around. You've got to try and figure out how to get past them. At the moment, it's Cody's race to lose. And Kaketo Polani actually putting his...
On the outside.
Oh, gets his hazards on. He landed up on the marbles, and that cost him a severe amount of time. I actually want to take a look from the helicam when he was trying to get round Justin Lotus, and did he get it on the marbles, get the tail out and lose drive? There he is trying to go around the outside, swipes across the nose, and it was just not enough spacing.
Yeah, and the Merc got all squirmy behind him. Justin Lotus did break fairly early to give him the space. As Alonso says, you must always give the space. But the car getting kind of squirmy, Lonnie, and unfortunately he just ran out of road, ran out of steering angle. The car didn't want to cooperate. Now making his way back, and trying to make his way back, fighting and trying to get back to Bego Grobler to try and take the fight to him. Still got it, getting the hazards on, so maybe that's showing a little bit intent.
Just going and letting know, Ryan Otten's also having a good pass, and he actually allowed Dean Kabasa to have a difficult time as Justin Lotus managed to sneak on by. So Justin Lotus utilizing his teammates to try and maneuver himself in just the right position. This is where it comes into a bit of a thinking strategy, and once you're dealing with multiple teammates on a circuit, you just hope they're not in the same chat with one another, that they're not talking to one another. Well, it's a difficult situation for anyone.
You're hoping, but you kind of know they're talking to each other.
Well, you're hoping they're saying different words. They're talking about music, what they had for lunch, and not really about what's happening in the race. As we see Charles trying to line himself up, going around the outside of Andre going and giving him a rough time, and taking the curb.
Andre will have to get that position back.
Well, that was Charles that actually cut the curb and does so. So gives back the position to Andre Serradio. Andre comes on by, and I've got to take my hat off. This is something I do want to point out more and more often, is when you've got drivers to respect into the situation of I made an unfair pass or I had an unfair advantage. They do relinquish the position and say, right, let's go back for round 2. We've got to give them a pat on the back. We've got to say, congratulations, well done, good showing out there. Jumping up to Ryan Ottens and Kuketso Polani. Kuketso getting dropped down into 7th place. Ryan Ottens just coming across his nose. Kuketso trying to go around the outside. That
Again.
Oh, that Mercedes is just not looking too stable. Every time he goes around, the tail end just wants to slide out around him. Ryan Ottens now on the defensive with Kuketso Polani all over the back of him. The ATK driver in his debut race for the Grid Championship Pro Division is now having a great slugfest with Ryan Ottens, who's a veteran at this.
Oh,
at
a
the
little bit
moment.
of contact. Milani runs wide.
Oh, and just losing out that drive has cost him a bit of time. So Kuketso Polani now having to battle it out. He's got the likes of...
He's got, I think, Justin Lotus behind him.
that's Justin Lotus that is chasing him. So Justin Lotus is going to have to give him a bit of spacing and say, right, you carry on the race, but he cannot let him go too much because he's got the likes of Dean Kabasa really putting in and turning the screws in. Sanjin Pillay going after Tini and Kube. So it's our Ferrari versus the likes of our BMW. Now just seeing that Sanjin has completed all his pit stops and Tini Kube, who is still yet to complete a pit stop, is in a monstrous fight, and Kube is not
Sanjin yuling all the road and some grass there as well.
just utilize everything. You know, it's all part of the same racetrack.
It's not
all
between the
behind
white
us.
lines, it's between the walls.
Yeah, it's between the walls. It's between the grandstands. Don't stress about it. But having a great race, but Tini Kube is kind of in a losing situation at this point because once he pits, Sanjin's going to have a good go. But take a look. Daniel Rowe into the top 10 has completed all his pit stops, while Cody Sherritt is still yet to do one more pit stop. Baron Kruger, Mac van der Merwe, Bego Krobler, Ryan Ottens, Kuketso Polani, Christian Deploy, and Christopher Radloff still needing to do one more pit. There's only 10 minutes left of our pit window before they cannot make a successful pit or a pit that will count at this point. So, how deep in the race are you willing to go?
Well, just one thing you mentioned, Christian Deploy there in 7th place. That's not actually half bad considering that he's had a drive-through penalty as well. So he made his way back up to the field, not badly at all, but still having to do that one pit stop. So that's going to make him drop back, a little bit further back. We've got Daniel Rowe. All we're going to say is Daniel Rowe in 10th place. He is currently running net first.
He's running in net first and is giving a good run, but I've got to just point out that Ryan Ottens has got his hands full with essentially our wild card that has come into play, and Kuketso Polani is giving Ryan Ottens a very tough time at this point. So I've got to take it off. It's absolutely brilliant to see the Hybrid Academy team duking it out with the ATK sim driver, along with Christian Deploy, who's watching his teammates further up the road, going and having this great battle, and you can be sure that come the end of it, Kuketso's going to have a big smile on his face of he's managed to take the fight. He's getting into the fight with the top 5 of our pro grid, and for an outing that seems to be going his way, despite getting caught up in a few incidents, he's really showing off what he can do, and the young man showing why he went and represented South Africa in the FIA games. As coming from Kuketso Polani's interesting history is he did Gran Turismo before ACC, then did really well, won a championship, and really proved what he could do in Gran Turismo. Got dumped into ACC, got told learn it, get good at it, go racing in it, and didn't have a lot of time to do it. So he tried working with the team, try and figure out what the car's doing, how the sim works itself. It seems to have gotten to grips with it. So the transition from Gran Turismo to ACC has been quite a smooth one for him, and he's managed to take the fight into our pros. I'm going to take my hat off to him.
I mean, absolutely. You were talking purely about the fact that he came from Gran Turismo, now on ACC. Not a lot of drivers can do, call it a sim swap, like they do in the cell phones. I mean, sims are very different on their own. I know guys that did really well in ACC, decided to go and do a little bit of iRacing, and they absolutely struggled in iRacing, and vice versa as well. I know guys that were brilliant at iRacing, tried their hand on ACC, and it did not work out for them. They were just slow, me being one of them. But it just shows you the talent that Pilani's got to move between sims and be quick on more than one sim, Stephen.
Well, the question comes in as we see Andre Serradio and Charles going and duking it out, is the pressure that's getting put on for the likes of Ryan Ottens, who is going for the championship, and he's essentially got Kaketso Pilani, who's the wild card, who's got nothing to lose at this point, who's been told, go race, go and
you can push now.
Yeah, just go race. Give it everything you got. Ryan Ottens, who needs the points, who needs it for his team and needs it for his championship, has now got essentially, he's got a wild card behind him that is going to do everything in his power to make sure he can get into the top 5 and show he is a force to be reckoned with. This is where you've got a situation of someone that's got everything to lose and someone that's got nothing to lose. And what's going to come out to it? No, that's it. He's got everything to prove, nothing to lose. Ryan Ottens is, at this point, turned his mirrors in and turned off the rearview mirror. He does not want to know what's behind him.
Exactly. But I've been keeping an eye on that Porsche of him, and Ryan raced last night as well, and it does look like, might be wrong, but it does look like he's going through a similar phase like we went last night, where the Porsche is struggling a little bit. I mean, definitely it looks like through the chicanes, the Mercedes is definitely concept, and the Porsche squirming underneath Ryan a little bit. So Ryan doing his absolute best to keep in front of Pilani and maximize his points, as we see Cody Sherritt doing his final pit stop. So now it's a race for the line for Cody Sherritt, Stephen, and he is going to get out of pits still in first place.
Just taking a look, he's actually going to be dropping down the ladder because Ryan Ottens and Kaketso Pilani have come by. So Cody Sherritt is...
my timing sheets that are...
It's a little bit slow, but...
you need to pay the admin people more. They need to get on the ball, man.
I tried giving them a decaf coffee, hoping that might help. Maybe I should go caffeinated coffee.
Oh, espresso.
Oh no, then they'll be bouncing through the walls. And Kaketso Pilani going and pushing Ryan Ottens, trying to force a mistake up on the inside. Ryan Ottens doing everything he can to try and hold back the 80k sim racer in the Mercedes. This Porsche just trying to become a lot wider than it actually is. Cody Sherritt, who is in 6th place, needs to try and get away from the rest of the field, is in a first at the moment, but it depends on how much Brandon Kruger can push to try and get away from it. But Cody Sherritt's not going to have an easy time, because this little battle is what he has to get round first before anything. Mac van der Merwe diving into the pit, so he's going to drop down the order. And here comes Ryan Ottens and Kaketso Pilani to come by. So
Kaketso is missing.
Kaketso actually has dived into the pits as well.
The pits.
Yeah, so he's...
Stop listing as... There we go. Now he's in the pits, according to my sheet.
So Kaketso's into the pits. Brandon Kruger, Bago Krubler still out. Mac van der Merwe's into the pits. Ryan Ottens going to be jumping up into 3rd place. And Cody Sherritt is going to be moving into 4th place, along with Christian Deploy, who's on a bit of a charge. Majority of the field have pitted. 4 drivers yet to do their final pit stops, and we're now into the last 3 minutes of our pit window. 7 minutes to go with the race, and it's all to play for round number 6 of the Grid Championship, brought to you by Mettlestate and RaceFace. Stop-go penalty, though, goes to Koketso Polani.
No, that's not what you want.
Oh, Koketso just coming off the button a little bit too early. And unfortunately, getting that stop-go penalty, 30 seconds, that's going to be hindering him. Brandon Kruger diving into the pits now. Let's see where Bego Krobler is going to be coming by. Bego is going to launch his way through. Is he going to go into the pits? Nope. Deciding he's going to run it out a little bit longer. Ryan Ottens, is he going to decide to go in the pits? And does so at a considerable speed. Actually misses the pit lane a little bit. I think the brake pedal went all the way to the floor. In that case, and life got a little bit more interesting in that Porsche.
Yeah, it almost looked like that Porsche did not want to slow down. He did have a little bit of a difficult entry. There was a car in front of him, so he was a little bit blindsided on that pit entry, which might have affected his braking point. You do have a different braking point for the pit lane than what you have for the last corner, so that might have influenced him a little bit, braking a little bit too late there. But he managed to get the car swung in, get into the pits and into his pit box as we now have a look at Cody Sherritt making his way around the track. Cody, Stephen, you know, he did just not to take tyres on his pit stop, and it was pointed out on the YouTube chat by Mr. Burtis Hugo that I think it's too late for Cody to take tyres now, which I totally agree with. So he's now doing it right up until the end on one set of tyres.
Well, let's see. Last lap time was at 1:29.3. Best lap time was 1:28.8 after his pit stop. So definitely his times have dropped off quite drastically at this point. And if Bego can open up a sufficient enough lead, I think it's pretty much in the bag here.
He's not going to do it in the pits.
No, that's it. And I think Cody Sherritt is going to be smiling. Maybe, just maybe, that was enough to get by. Koketso Polani, though, is still in the fight with Ryan Ottens. Despite the 30 seconds, he's going to give it everything she's got right to the end and show why he is a force to be reckoned with at this moment. Ryan Ottens is going, you got 30 seconds, you're on my tail, but buddy, I'm going to show you how the pros do it. Let's get into this fight. And is giving a monstrous fight. He's going on the defense, middle of the circuit, just to try and force Koketso to pick a line, whether it's inside, outside, left, right. You're going to have to figure your way around. And Koketso Polani pulling into the pits. He's going to get that 30 seconds out of the way. He's dived into the pits, but it's something to be aware of. And we just heard Jim telling us that the pit window is closed. Thank you very much, Jim. And Jim will be waiting at the start line with the checkered flag. When the guys come through, he will inform us. So, gotta say, big thank you to Jim. Jim talks to a lot of people during a race.
Yeah, he does a lot of work, a lot of work, very little pay. You need to forgive him for one or two slip-ups every now and again. I'm more worried about Tim than Jim. Tim, we need to watch out. That guy's dodgy. Tim is not always on him.
I think we have hit the world of madness when we start naming some virtual AI.
Brandon Kruger running a little bit wide there. That's going to absolutely kill his drive. Not that it's going to matter a lot because Mac van der Merwe is 7.8 seconds behind at this stage. But, you still need to keep it on track up until that finish line.
You think of how all these drivers are slugging out. I mean, you got Andre Serradio and Charles, who are 15th and 16th at the moment, are still slugging it out. They are in their own race. They've had the leaders come interfering in their race and just let them by and say, listen, move. We're having our race. These two have been back at it left and right. They're not within the top 10. They're in the top 20. And they're just focusing on having a huge amount of fun for their championships. Andre Serradio around the outside, keeping that Mercedes in check, which has been a difficult one. The Honda still going side by side. These two are not giving each other any breathing room to make a way past. But Andre Serradio having a little bit more straight line. Charles trying to deal with it. Now in through the chicane. Both go side by side. And door to door at this point. Here comes Mac van der Merwe, who's trying to get past them. Sees Charles Charles going, okay, I understand you're behind me, buddy, but I'm in my race as well. You've got to respect it. And Andre Serradio with a drive-through penalty this late into the race. Oh, that's just going to impact it. And I think Charles has actually seen it going, all right, I'm going to give you some breathing room. I know you got the drive-through. It means I've got time. Even if you cross the line, you're going to land up with a hefty penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. And further out the field, Christian Deploy now only 1 second behind Daniel Rose. So this is shaping up to be a nice little battle in the last minute or so of this race. I mean, Christian Deploy I've been keeping an eye on it here out of the corner of my eye. He's been closing that gap, quite considerably over the past couple of laps. So don't know if Daniel Rowe might be struggling a little bit in the BMW in terms of tires or so.
It's been a rather incredible race in terms of seeing the level of talent that's out on the circuit today. And just all the teams putting in that extra little bit of effort to get these cars to align, to maximize the points, taking chances, taking risks. Yes, we've had a couple of retirements, but there's been some really good racing this evening. And just taking a look at all the cars just launching themselves over our chicane. This is turn 4, turn 5. But everyone has been really stepping up their game, trying to push themselves a little bit more every single time. And the championship is still wide open for anyone to go for the taking. And we saw a lot of fighting words where hold my drink, watch what I can do.
Hold my beer. Yeah.
It's pretty much one of those situations.
And watch this move.
Watch this.
Oh, Christian Deploy running wide there. That's going to kill his drive a little bit and hurts his support. It doesn't actually look like he lost a lot of time with that running wide. Still on that back bumper of Daniel Rowe, but running out of time to make the pass and make it stick.
As our leader, Cody Sherritt, is on his final lap. Daniel Rowe and Christian Deploy are fighting for 6th and 7th place respectively at this point. But Cody Sherritt, who is light years ahead, 13.6 seconds ahead of Brandon Kruger, followed by Mac van der Merwe. Bego Krobler trying to close down that gap. Ryan Ottens, Daniel Rowe has got Christian Deploy all over him for 7th. Peter Meyer in 8th, and 9th place is Christopher Radloff with Sanjan Pillay in 10th place, putting on a monster amount of pressure at this point.
Time is running out now to make your move if you want to get that final position or so. We are on the final lap, Stephen. It does not feel like we've been racing for an hour and 20 minutes. It does not really feel any longer than the 45-minute sprint race last night.
It's absolutely incredible stuff. But 2 corners to go. It's all on this man from Genesis Esports. Been having a phenomenal run. Had a bit of a difficult time. Checkered flag out and taking first place for round number 6 of the Mettlestate Grid Championship, brought to you by Mettlestate and RaceFace. Second place will be going to Brandon Kruger, who's going to be rather happy with that. Mac van der Merwe with Bego right on his tail. They're going to drag it to the line. The 2 Audis are just doing what they can, but Mac van der Merwe ahead of Bego Krobler. Ryan Ottens finishing ahead of Daniel Rowe, who has got Christian Deploy trying to go around the outside, trying to cut back at him, but it does look like Daniel Rowe's got the drive out the corner. Christian Deploy doing everything he can side by side, but Daniel Rowe ahead of Christian Deploy by 0.1 of a second, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Meyer in 8th place, 9th going to Christopher Radloff. Oh, we got a T-bone. That is Loic Randebal and the likes of Andre Serradio going and changing it up a little bit. Right at the last, Loic Randebal and Andre Serradio. Let's actually see if we could jump back a little bit and see what happened between these. Come on, Tim, you're nearly there. Loic trying to defend against Andre Serradio in through the corners. It does look like Andre's got the drive on him. A little bit of a bump, a little bit of a barge, turned round, and a bit of a blockade. And Andre Serradio just allowing Loic to get on going. But, well, that was eventful.
Yeah, well, they took that fight right up until the line, and trying to make the move stick. Unfortunately, I think Rannibal was a little bit slow out of the corner, and unfortunately, he got a bump from behind and got turned around, and unfortunately got T-boned while he got turned around.
And Mac Van Hoover
It's
sliding
kind
in.
of, that was majestic.
Well, let's head back to our commentary booth. And wow, what a race, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I could say. What a race for round number 6 of the Mettlestate Grid Championship. I've got to say, it's going to be interesting to see what happens come round number 7 next week as we head to Suzuka with possibility of rain, might I add. Possibility. Keep an eye on the weather reports. But, gentlemen, what we just saw this evening was some phenomenal racing right up to the line. 0.1 of a difference between 6th and 7th place. We had Koketso Polani, who was a wild card, who put in the fight against Ryan Ottens. Just amazing racing. Couple of shocking retirements have happened with the likes of Barkhuizen, who got disconnected rather unfortunately. Philip Minnar running into difficulties early on in the race. But if you had to sum up everything that's going through your mind right now, what would it be?
It was wild. I mean, Stephen, we had literally all sorts of stuff going on. Cody Sherritt out in front, kind of running away with it with his 12.7 second gap that it ended on. But overall, there was so much going on in this race that sometimes it literally was quite difficult to keep a track on everything on what was going on. I mean, I've said it, so much going on. It was an absolutely busy race, I would say.
Absolutely phenomenal stuff, and guys, I'm really, really looking forward to it. As we head into the final 2 rounds of the championship, I gotta say, really, really excited to see how it all works out, how it's all going to change. But, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're out on Twitch, go and look up twitch.tv/Mettlestate. Go and follow, hit the heart icon to keep up to date, and the bell notification as well for all the amazing competitions that are coming to Mettlestate, and also for the amazing action as we head into the conclusion of this amazing Season 2 championship of the Grid Championship, brought to you in conjunction with Mettlestate and RaceFace. And if you're out on live stream on a YouTube side, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like as well, drop a comment. We love to see your guys' comments as we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for any channel to go for. Gentlemen, anything from your side in closing?
Well, really looking forward to next week, especially, with a little bit of chance of rain. I think that might throw a little bit of a spanner in the works and make things even a little bit more interesting. And, we have to remain to be seen what's going to happen next week. Suzuka, I think it's almost, well, not almost, it's a lot longer track than what Zolder is, so it does open up strategies a lot more. You can play with the strategies a bit more because the track is a little more stretched out. Suzuka, famously the figure 8, they go underneath the bridge, and it's got the 130R. Stephen, and if the 130R is going to be wet, there might be some sliding going on.
You might be going 130R in the wrong direction.
You might be going only 110R and then hit the wall.
Oh, your reverse gear suddenly has 130R. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, teens and tots, and everyone listening. We're glad to have you guys here, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Same time, same place. Make sure you keep up to date with all the action. Follow us out on socials under RaceFace and Mettlestate for some amazing news. Also, Mettlestate runs continuous prizes as well for guys. Even if you're not a fan of racing, there's lots going on. But from our side, both myself, Stephen Koenig, and Janneman Price, we wish to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone.